As we pass the halfway mark of the midterm primaries, advocates of election reform are warning that Congress could soon become even more polarized than it already is. In the past several months, Republican primary voters in places like Texas, Kentucky, and Louisiana have forced out incumbent lawmakers who crossed President Trump and didn't have his endorsement. And on the Democratic side, left-wing candidates have ousted incumbent and more moderate candidates in states like New York and Colorado. The advocates of primary reform say closed single-party primaries, which often exclude independent voters, are a major factor that can feed polarization in our politics, resulting in less governing and more vitriol. Joining me now is one of those leading voices advocating for this type of reform, founder and president of the group Open Primaries, John Opdycke. John, thank you so much for joining us. This is one of those fascinating but sort of under the radar storylines. But talk to me about how this process would work, what kind of primary you're advocating for, and what that would actually look like on a practical level.
Sure. And, a number of states have eliminated party primaries and gone to people's primaries, where everybody gets to vote for whoever they want, just like in the general election. We see that in California, in Nebraska, Washington, and Alaska. And it creates a whole different dynamic that I think is much more in tune with where the country is going. Because if you look at the stats, Melanie, every single week, 10,000 Americans change their voter registration from Democrat or Republican to independent. It's now 48% of the country, fastest growing segment of the electorate. And yet our election system is set up where kind of independents are more, they're seen as interlopers and outsiders, and they don't quite fit in the structure of the existing system. And that's something that's got to change if we want our democratic experiment to keep moving in a positive direction.
I want to read for you a quote from the conservative Lincoln Institute arguing against open primaries. They said, as a registered Republican and one who has been active in the Republican Party my entire adult life, I do not want Democrats or anyone not a member of the Republican Party deciding our standard bearer. Open primaries would, in fact, deprive us of the ability to select candidates who adhere to the principles and policies for which our party stands. How do you respond to that?
Well, in two ways. First of all, the closed primary system, which we have in 16 states, actually creates what he's talking about. We just did a poll, for example, in New York City. We found that 40% of registered Democrats are actually independents and Republicans. People join a party only to gain the right to vote. So if you want your party to be made up of only members, you definitely have to have an open system so people don't have to join your party, even though they don't believe in it. Secondly, there is no contradiction between party rights and a system that allows all voters to participate. Parties are free. They're private organizations. They're free to have conventions, nominate, endorse as they see fit. But if you're talking about a publicly funded election system, then everybody should be able to participate. That's how I see it.
What do you say to the argument that anyone can already vote in a closed primary, just join the party?
Well, some independents do that, but a lot of independents aren't willing to join an organization that they don't support. They have moral, political, ideological objections to. And I don't think in a functioning democracy that you should require joining a private organization in order to vote. I mean, that's more, Brezhnev would be in favor of that, but I don't see why we would embrace that here in the United States.
California holds a top two primary in the governor's race. We saw Democrat Javier Becerra and Republican Steve Hilton advance the general election. Do you think open primaries have led to different kinds of candidates advancing to the general election?
Absolutely. Top two open nonpartisan primaries has been in place in California for now 16 years, and it has been transformative. First of all, look at the results of this primary season. We're only halfway through. By far, the highest turnout of any state in the country is California. Over 40% of people vote in the primary because they get to choose among all the candidates. They're not locked in to a party silo. The other thing is that you're seeing this in very liberal areas, in very conservative areas. You see two candidates from the same party advance to the general election. And that creates a whole nother set of opportunities for voters to have a real choice. I mean, one of the scandals about all the gerrymandering that's been going on around the country in red states and blue is that come November, most congressional races, the latest estimates are as high as 90%. They're already done. Everyone knows who's going to win. The primary is the only election that counts. But when you create a nonpartisan primary and you move the most popular candidates, regardless of party, from the primary to the general, you create real competition in November. And we see that in California and other states. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate all your reporting and insights.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.